Record. Okay. Think we're live, Doc. Yep. I don't know where he's at though. I don't know. Guess I started, but Doc's not ready apparently. Because I'm not, it doesn't give me an option to ask him to start his who went out? Somebody went out.
Doc went out.
Oh, I still see him here.
There he is.
No, he never left. He didn't leave. I'm not sure who left.
I'm not seeing any microphone or camera by his name if you pull up the
no,
chat.
And it does. Oh, he's coming on his iPhone.
Okay.
So, yeah, it didn't give me the option to ask him to start his So ask to unmute, ask to start video. Oh, he said he'll start later. You might feedback if you got two things on there, Doc. So
yeah, I'll shut one down.
Okay, we can at least hear you on that one. The other one won't. It won't give me an option to ask you to unmute, or it won't give me the option to anything. It doesn't.
Right, I was getting the rainbow spinning wheel of death. So.
Hate it when that happens. So we are live. So
all right.
Because I thought you were going to be able to be right on, and it's like, whoops.
I'm shutting off my laptop.
Okay.
All right. So we're ready to roll?
Yep.
You said, okay. I'd like to call the meeting of the Finance Committee for January 20th, 2021 to order. Members present are Ms. Earlston and Mr. Ivy. We have minutes for two meetings that we need to approve, December 16th and 18th. Could I have a motion to approve the December 16th minutes?
I'll make a motion to approve the December 16th minutes.
I'll second.
Ms. Earlston makes the motion and Mr. Ivy seconds. All in favor? Aye.
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 Motion carries. The minutes for the December 16th meeting are approved. May I have a motion to approve the minutes for the December 18th meeting?
I'll make the motion, Dr. Fellner, to approve the minutes from the December 18th special meeting.
Mr. Ivy makes the motion.
And I'll second that motion.
And Mrs. Earlston seconds. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. I'm trying to pull up the agenda here. We have two ordinance items on the agenda. Could I please?
We have a bunch of other stuff on there. Yeah. Okay.
I have an approval of the agenda as presented.
I'll make the motion.
And I will second that motion.
Mr. Ivy makes the motion and Ms. Earlston seconds. All in favor?
Aye.
Agenda is approved. First discussion item is amending ordinance 2020-92. Could I have some help with this by Ms. Colleen or Mr. Baldinger?
I'm not sure where Gail went.
Okay.
Does he need to come back in?
Oh, I don't know where he went, is all I'm saying. I don't see him on here anymore. So
I knew I could hear people going in and out, but I was trying to work and couldn't see who was.
Regardless, due to some of the changes in the formula, the total for the general fund was changed. And so I guess after much back and forth and discussion, it was felt that it needed to come back to council to change it. However, I'm still going to stress again that council's level of approval is only by category. And we did get confirmation from that from the state. However, I also want to question or point out in looking at this ordinance that this changes the general fund. And if we're worried about the totals, why aren't we changing the total of the overall appropriations?
Oh, well.
Because like I said, it has a trickle down effect.
Oh, okay. Well, then we probably need to add another section there on page, whatever page that is. Let me pull it up.
I don't know
what to amend it.
I don't have any information at all in front of me, so I'm not sure even what that figure would actually be.
Well, you add 60,000 is what it is. So let me find it.
So Doc, this is 04 from the other night that we didn't have the special meeting over.
Right.
That's just coming back up, trying to make that initial adjustment.
Sure.
Yeah. Okay, so it would be, we would need to add a B line item. And it would need to be, we would change the, it would be, I guess a 2. We would change page 17 of 17, and that would be total all funds, and that would change from Galleon City Auditors come back in. Okay, that would change from, let's see here. 37,817,419.00 to 37,877,419. So that would be, we'd have to make a amendment for that. I can show it right now. I can share that screen. So. There we go.
I want to put your comma in between the 7 and the 4.
It's
Oh,
30 million. It's not 37,000. It's 37 million.
37 million. I'm sorry. Yeah, 37 million. That was my bad. 37,817,419, and then it would go to 37,877,419.
So both are just reflecting the addition of the $60,000.
Yes. Yes.
So can I ask a question of Eunice? By doing this with the total, Eunice, does that help with the, since we're technically not usually privy to line by line, does it help if we put it in there with just the total there?
The total has absolutely no effect on me and what I do. I've already imported the budget and moved forward because we had the approval that you guys needed to give. So this has no effect. It was not done at our request. This has no effect whatsoever on my process for year end or opening the books, nothing.
Yeah, Thomas just said we needed to have the correct, the correct totals in the document since it didn't reflect the total, and the totals were used as part of the, discussion and, as, you guys comparing for revenues and such. So.
Okay.
I think I understand. And does anyone have questions? If that explanation is satisfactory, then I'd like to hear a motion to ordinance 2021-4 onto full council.
As amended, it needs to be amended.
I'd like to make a motion to add 2020-4 or 2021-4 onto full council as amended.
I will second.
Ms. Earlston makes the motion, seconded by Mr. Ivy. All in favor? Aye.
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 Motion passes, and ordinance 2021-4 as amended will go on to full council for Tuesday. Next item is ordinance 2021-5. And again, I'm going to call on Ms. Colleen or Mr. Baldinger to go through these sections.
Yeah, I'm going to refer that to Colleen to break that down for you.
All right, Eunice, you're on.
I will explain this as best I can.
Okay.
So the first part of it being section 2 and 3 appropriates the CARES Act funds that we carried over from last year. You all recall that we got the extension on the CARES Act fund and we have till December of this year to expend it. We got that notice, I think, the same day as we were passing the budget. The mayor might have a better timeline than me on that, but we, at that point, since we were so far in, we opted to wait and not amend the budget the same day we were trying to get it passed and just come back and reappropriate this. It will require us to file an amended certificate with the county auditor, but that's on our end. But this appropriates $403,722.14 into the reimbursement. And the mayor and I spoke about this, and we're trying to figure out where to appropriate things and how to do it with what's planned. Then section 3 puts the remaining $25,000, which is the balance, cash balance in that fund at the time. We appropriated that into the operating supplies. I do just want to make a note so that everybody is aware that we may come back to do an additional smaller appropriation as we go or later, because this fund will continue to grow as we post interest to it. So as long as there's a balance in there, it will earn interest. So just keep that in the back of your mind as well. Section 4, this is, so we had, I'll try and explain this first. We had one customer, this is in relating to the utility refunds that we did. One customer had 2 accounts. They got a $200 credit on one account instead of that being split over the 2 accounts. So we had to go back and correct that. So it changed the split between the electric, water, sewer, and stormwater. We had another customer that instead of being given the credit, they were inadvertently charged $100 extra. So we had to reverse that back out as well. So section 5 ends up giving the electric fund cash back in the, or section 4, I'm sorry, gives the electric fund cash back in the amount of $1886. So that's why you see it going from the electric, I'm sorry, I've said that backwards. This is confusing. So it's going from the electric expense line of refunds into the CARES Act revenue line. Then section 5, 6, and 7 is taking the respective amounts from the CARES Act and putting them into the revenue lines for water, sewer, and stormwater respectively. I hope that's clear as mud.
And that, Eunice, the 5, 6, and 7 refer to that $100 overpayment?
It's actually a combination. So if you take and add the amounts in 5, 6, and 7 and subtract the amount in section 4, you will come out with $200.
Okay.
And that 200 reflects the $100 that he was charged and then giving the $100 credit. And the section 4 is just the adjustment between the percentage splits from the one that had the 2 accounts given to one.
You know, that was an excellent explanation, regardless of how difficult you felt it would be. I think you did a really good job, and that's an awful lot of work for a couple $100. So thank you very much.
I was just going to say the same thing. That explanation was, you took something and made it pretty clear for us all. Thank you.
Right.
Thank you.
Any other questions or comments? If not, I'd like to hear a motion to pass on ordinance 2021-5 onto full council.
I'll be happy to make the motion to move ordinance 2021-5 onto full council.
And I will second that.
Mr. Ivy makes the motion, seconded by Ms. Earlston. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Motion carries, and ordinance 2021-5 will be presented in the council packet on Tuesday. Section B of discussion items is regarding some health department issues, and we're going to call on Ms. Factor to give us an explanation of these.
Hey, thanks. Making sure everybody can hear me. Yeah. Okay.
Yes.
So very similar to what you all just looked at in that last ordinance. We have, well, point number 2 there, the CARES Act grant extensions. Our grant dollars under the CARES Act funds were extended as well. So I just wanted to make sure that we are able to then also have funds appropriated for us to be able to utilize those as well. We've been trying to work to get the exact fund lines and everything set up. I know that timing and everything has been an issue. So the actual lines and dollar amounts were not able to get to you in the form of an ordinance for this evening. But I did want to let you know that we have just shy of 60,000 in unspent, or the grant rollover from the CARES Act extensions. We do also have some upcoming COVID grants. There was one grant that was just over $7,000 that was accounted for in our 2021 budget. We knew that that one was coming. However, we also have, let me pull up my exact dollar figures here. We also have just over 49,000 in new grant dollars that will come into effect February 1st. And again, all of our grant dollars for COVID related issues, while we consider them grants, it's actually a contract for us, because all of the grant dollars go to Crawford County Public Health, and then the denominations that we are supposed to be granted under that, we have to have a signed contract with them. We invoice them every month for our expenses, and then we receive those funds back.
So they're reimbursing grants?
Yes. Yes, for the health department, all of them have been reimbursing grants. So,
hey Trish, I'm just curious, what's your turnaround on those grants? As far as when you apply, get notified that you're getting them until you have the cash deposited?
Well, we don't actually get cash deposited. The funds are, as soon as we find out that there's a grant available, it's usually a pretty rapid turnaround. Sometimes it's like one of them that starts February 1st is $20,000. They said, we are giving $20,000 to every single health department. You just have to complete a full assessment on something, submit it to us, then submit for us. We would then have to submit the invoice to the Crawford County Public Health, and then we would get reimbursed after they get reimbursed.
Gotcha. Okay. We
have a lag time in our reimbursements. So even last year, when we thought that we would have certain revenue being met, we didn't necessarily, because Crawford County can't reimburse us till they get reimbursed on that month. So it lags. So for example, we had, what's that dollar amount? Just over $69,000 reimbursed on the 14th of this month for our COVID-related expenses in the month of November. So it's that kind of a lag time from when we expend it to when we receive it. We are anticipating also just over 92,000. Again, I would expect that sometime in February from our December expenses that we submitted an invoice for on the 5th of January. So they have approximately 30 days, I believe, 30 or 45 days. I'd have to double check that before they can us. So what I wanted to make sure that you all knew about is, again, the CARES Act extension. And so we will need those allocated in there, as well as these additional grant funds that we will get them. It's just a matter of having to have it allocated in there on the front end for us to expend.
Trish, I don't mean to interrupt, but we don't know yet that we're going to allocate. We, with the health department being separate, this is all kind of new, and we're not sure yet how it's going to work with these being reimbursement grants. They do have money coming back in for expenses from last year. So we're not sure how all that's going to work. And I'm also trying to work with the state to find out if we would actually do advances rather than appropriations. So some of this money that she's referring to allocation's not the right word. I don't think that we want to use, and I don't know yet that it's appropriate or advance either. I think that they all appreciate getting the heads up that there's more money flowing, but we're not sure how the logistics of those funds are going to work just yet. Until we get all of that worked out and I get the amounts and where they're coming from and going to from Trish, we really won't know that. That's what we had discussed in our meeting a little over a week ago.
So again, with this, there's there's 2 that are carrying over, determining how that's going to go in. And then there's 1 that we had already accounted for 2021. And then there are 2 new grants that take effect February 1. And then, like I said, we had just over $69,000 revenue check that came in here in January. And then again, in February, we're expecting just over $92,000. So whatever steps it is that we need to take in order to make sure that the funds are utilized the way that they're supposed to be, and that they're in there the way that they are supposed to be. I know Eunice is talking to the state a lot, trying to figure out exactly how we need to walk through all this. Our biggest thing, we do have a couple expenses from 2020 that need to be paid out once everything is figured out. So we're trying to determine the best way, most efficient way, and the most clear-cut way to do all this right. And again, with us being in our own fund line now for kind of the second year now, we're still learning a lot and trying to figure out how things need to be moved or done in a certain fashion. And of course, all of these last minute grants and quick turnaround times and everything are making for a little bit of a logistical nightmare on our side, and I'm sure on the auditor's side as well, looking at all of these different pieces. But wanted to make you all aware that, you know, we're trying to do this, but if there are any answers that that Eunice is able to get here in the near future, we may need to have council action potentially quick. So I wanted to make sure that we were able to kind of explain where some of these funds were, kind of what the amounts are that we're looking at, and those types of things.
Eunice, how does the accounting, is it different this year versus last year with the grants, whether they're appropriations or advances, or is that, or is that just a clarification from the state auditor?
The question of advance or appropriation kind of just came up in our meeting a little over a week ago.
Okay.
Kind of a question that I had. And we also discussed in our meeting the lack of an agreement. So our office really doesn't know how a lot of the funding is supposed to be handled. So we do know that what you guys always refer to as the subsidy, for example, that is now considered a grant from the city to the health department. Well, we don't, just like any other grant, you have guidelines to follow. Like, you know, if you stipulate what it can be spent on, what happens with the balance if you don't spend it all, different things like that. The state auditor's office prepares 2 different GAAP reports now, one for the health department, one for the city. The health department's has to be done first because they are a component unit of the city. So their GAAP and their figures has to be incorporated into ours. At the end of the year, I did not know what to do or how to handle things. Initially in our meetings with the state auditors, they said that at the end of the year, the health department was to have a 0 balance. Well, I wasn't sure how to do that or how to make that happen without an agreement. And when I called the state for help, they asked what the agreement said. I said we didn't have an agreement, so they weren't able to help me. So we do have the ball rolling to get an agreement in place. But I still am not sure how it's all going to work, because I do know that the state did explain that they will do adjustments. So like and I'm going to use round numbers, if we gave the health department a $300,000 grant and they carried over, let's say 50,000, then we give them another 300,000 the next year. When they do the gap, that's going to be adjusted down. And in reality, they're only going to get a $250,000 grant. Since things weren't zeroed out, it's going to have to be adjusted and accounted for. So
but these dollars that we're talking about are not part of the city's grant, the new terminology. This is
right.
These are COVID dollars from ultimately Washington, trickled, filtered down through the state, county, locally. So does that influence one way or the other carryovers or 0 balances? I guess I'm not understanding. I mean, the city was given CARES funds to utilize, and we were able to utilize those funds as opposed to city funds for CARES related expenses. I'm not sure. It seems like it's a different set of rules. Or
let me explain it this way as best I can, and I'm not 100% positive on this, but so when we do the health department budget, they submit to us their expenses and their revenues. Whatever the difference is between that, we give them a grant to make up their expenses because the revenue is not enough. So then when you get a grant, like with the CARES Act, for example, and it's going to cover some of those regular operating expenses, such as payroll that the city gave them money for, you're not going to double pay it, and you cannot double claim that in grants. So there's going to be extra money there if both the CARES Act money and the city grant money is covering the same expense. Does that make sense?
I understand what you're saying, and I don't have enough. It seems odd, but that's just an opinion and no basis in fact. But I do see what you're saying. I think also the health department has some 2020 expenses that need to be taken care of, and I'm looking for a way to do that. Eunice, are you going to? I mean, you have ongoing communication with the state auditor in this, because it sounds like it's another confusing issue.
Yes, and my communication. I mean, they know I've got stuff on the burner that I'm communicating with them.
Sure.
However, they're busy. I'm busy.
Right.
So they're getting ready to do GAP. We're pulling stuff for GAP already in our office on top of trying to do year end and open the year and everything else. So it's going to come to a head sooner rather than later, because this is obviously a piece of that. I agree with you on how you make sense of things, but that's beyond my pay scale to figure out.
Gotcha.
So all I can do is try and relay the information and give the scenarios and examples that I was given to try and explain it as best I can. I realized that money was carried over with the CARES Act grant, just like we had. Realized that they still have expenses. I am well aware of that. And as they submit money, they still have money coming in from the expenses as they submit them from last year. So we are trying to figure out how to make the logistics of those funds work so that we can get everything covered and taken care of, and then, figure out the balances and where we go with things.
Sure.
But again, above my pay grade.
I have a question.
Certainly.
Okay, this may be it's really stupid, but if the CARES Act money is not being used for something that the city normally would pay for, does that alleviate some of the issues or the problem, or is pretty much everything in the healthcare something that the city covers?
I think, and Trish might be better to answer this, but I think a majority of their expenses with the CARES Act is more stuff above and beyond what was in the budget. I don't know if theirs is, I know the health department has a little more leniency with the healthcare money or the CARES Act money, but like with the city, anything that we spent it on had to be something that was not already in the budget, that we had not already planned on. I think the health department's is different. The wages is just kind of one of the, I guess, more oddball things. And that's why that was given as an example, I guess. Trish, do you?
Yeah, we were, with the exception of one staff member, a portion of her time, anybody's time that was spent was able to be recouped under these dollars as well. So unless they were paid for out of a grant that did not have, out of another federal grant that did not have some kind of reciprocating thing with COVID funds, then we were allowed to recoup those costs. So a large portion of our COVID dollars are recouping personnel time. A lot of the times too, it's written into some of these that overtime is something that's allowed to be covered. Some of the, and again, we're talking about multiple different funding streams. So some of them allowed for overtime, some of them did not. Some of them allowed for personnel time of current staff, some of them did not. So we're kind of picking and pulling from every different one. Each funding stream for COVID that we have had has a different set of rules. So it's a whole lot to try to keep tabs on, and luckily, we've got Liv and we've got staff that are tracking their time down to 15-minute increments throughout all this as well, to be able to pull reports like that. So we have been doing a lot of those components there.
But you have had to incorporate other temporary employees, as it were, to do contact tracing and things like that. So, I mean, I guess that was my disconnect, Eunice, with the expenses that, the city back in 2019 set forth a budget with the grant to the health department. And then in 2020, the world drove off the cliff. And now it seems like it's sort of a double jeopardy with the CARES dollars and the expenses that were added in 2020. And now it's 2021. And so, I mean, I can appreciate how much extra work everybody has had. And Eunice, I honestly, I don't, that wasn't directed for you to give me an answer. That was only my thought process. So, I mean, I want to obviously encourage you to continue on with the discussions from the state auditor, and we're just move on and eventually get this taken care of.
Absolutely. And I appreciate that, Doc. And like I said, the salary one is only for the current employees on payroll. And I'm kind of just repeating what I was given. It's not something that I came up with.
Sure.
And I mean, on our end, we're going from being a part of the general fund to being on our own fund line to now jumping over all of these other, I guess, hurdles, if you will, trying to figure out how, when we do get additional grant funds in, how do we go about having funds in our accounts, in our budget lines, to be able to expend them. And again, with almost every Ohio Department of Health issued grant fund, it's reimbursable. So we have to have it to spend it and then get it back. So trying to figure out what all of the steps in this process are for us is a little bit different. When we would get other grant funds and such before, we would come to council and ask for additional appropriations. Now it sounds like that's not how it's going to end up. So trying to figure out all those things. That's why I wanted to make sure that you guys knew, everybody's been working on this. We're trying to figure out what steps need to be taken. And there's just a lot of gray area right now in trying to figure it out, but we're doing our best to try to make sure that we have the people that are out there doing the work, boots on the ground, getting everything taken care of, especially, right now when it comes to all the COVID response. We are still doing contact tracing. We are still doing, we started just before Christmas on the vaccination campaign, and our nurses are at that every day now. So, we're working diligently on it and just trying to make sure that we can pay everybody and have whatever funds it is that we need to make sure that everything's working the way that it should for us. So again, there's not a whole lot of answers right now, that probably more questions than answers in this session, but just making sure you guys are aware there is the carryover. There is a little over $150,000 worth of revenue that when we did our 2021 revenue projections was not there, on top of the other grants. So it's difficult when we do a budget in September to even know what to anticipate in January, let alone down the road. So there will be modifications. There will be changes that have to be made on budgets, but just trying to figure out what the process is and how we need to go about doing that so that we can make sure everything's getting paid.
Anybody else have any questions or comments? If not, Trish, thanks so much. Eunice, also thank you very much for the explanations. And as you said, Trish, this was more of a fact presentation as to where we are at this moment. And so our awareness is going to help once we get things sorted out. So thank you very much.
Thanks.
Next on the agenda is a discussion of the Free Center, the economic development meeting last night. I thought was very useful in terms of information, and it turns out that the same 3 committee members are gathered again for another discussion. So I am going to assume that Mr. Mayor, you're going to run with this one.
Sure, Doc. I don't want to. I want to spend just a few minutes pointing out what Chad Miller brought up at the end of the meeting, and that was the issue of infrastructure for the Free Center, and I don't expect this to turn into an ordinance tonight, but I do want to point out that in each one of the elements of infrastructure, if we proceed with funding the project, the city is going to have to go into the 2021 budget and look at increases in water, sewer, a small amount probably, or smaller amount in stormwater, but certainly in roadway. So those elements for sure. And then the other one that I think I have an answer for, if council wants to go ahead and fund the infrastructure, is our Fund 625 has what I think will turn out to be a sufficient amount of revenue sitting in it to be able to fund the extension of the line from where the city electric ends back to where you'll need it to construct the site. So there's a fair amount of work there, committee, and what I think was asked at the very end last night is if the city would, if the port goes ahead and funds the design of these 3 or 4 elements of infrastructure, that will the city go ahead and bid the work and construct the improvements. So I wanted to lay that out, not to complicate the problem, but to make sure that as we proceed with the project itself, there isn't anything in the 2021 budget really to fund those items. There's money in 625, but we didn't appropriate anything in 625. So,
Tom, let me interrupt just.
Yeah.
When you said fund, let me go back. I think that I would like to see, if possible, that the city pay for the study or the engineering.
Okay.
And in that way, I mean, it's sort of, I don't know who's going to blink first or whatever, the Port Authority is saying, hey, we've got funds in from state loan and other money to fund that engineering, but we'll do it. We want an assurance that the city's going to, bid right and build it. I believe that the Port Authority is going to do some valuable work, is doing valuable work, and will be in future. But I think that the city fund the study and then let us make a decision whether the project is doable or not, and save the Port Authority some expense. I don't know if that's a reasonable, you know, obviously you don't want to get an engineering study on a project that you're lukewarm about. But, you know, we don't have, I think, council consensus. I think that we've got people that are enthusiastic about it, and based on what we heard last night, is the risks to the city in the financing are as minimized as possible. Obviously, our skin in the game is going to be infrastructure, roadway, and the development. And, you know, I'm also looking forward ahead of the Freeze project. If it does what it says it's going to do, then, you know, infrastructure may be there for another hotel or a restaurant, or so, you know, I am, but I think, I don't know, what do you feel about that as far as the cities? And then the Port Authority can spend money on helping the roadway get built or something once, I don't know.
Well,
you know
I think that even if you break it apart, meaning the engineering costs, into various funds, the roadway itself is going to come to council for the engineering. Not that you know, we would avoid coming for an ordinance to bid, but we can do the design work in the water and sewer and stormwater. I think the design work to get a set of plans ready to be bid on the roadway, that'll come back to council. That'll be a councilmatic thing. So you'll certainly have a voice in that. Now the costs of paying, and I'm going to propose that we use the city engineer to do those elements. That's probably, it's going to be in excess of 50,000. That's why I said, you know, there'll be a bid amount. So it's but I can't disagree with you. If they have limited funds, if the city wants to do the project, we should design it and then spend more time, not tonight, but in the near future, thinking through how we come up with the money to construct the elements. Again, electric, although I'm not sure everybody will like the idea of using 625 to construct that. It's certainly a legitimate improvement to the electric system. So that one, if everyone agrees that's a good use, that one's taken care of. But I'm going to repeat myself. The roadway design cost and construction cost is going to be is going to require a serious conversation.
I have a comment after Miss Earlston, if she's had her hand up for a while.
All right, Ms. Earlston, you're on.
Okay, so my question is, do we have any rough idea, the roadway, the sewer, the electric, all of this combined, what kind of costs we're looking at just to get that part?
I can help with that. I confirmed it's the 11.6 million. The infrastructure is included with the 8.5 estimate on the construction of the facility itself. So that 11.6 million that we heard about last night, that is including with the infrastructure, if I'm not mistaken. Am I off base there, Mayor? The total with the infrastructure and the facility itself approaching 11.6.
No, yeah, maybe. I don't know if it's that high, but to answer Tammy's question, Aaron, I would say that the infrastructure costs, water, sewer, and I'm not even talking gas, but just forget that for a second, natural gas. I suspect, or
and the roadway as well, right?
Yeah, the roadway. I think that's in the neighborhood of 1.5 million.
Yeah.
Now, what McKeever's doing at our request is roughing out an estimate of what they would propose that they charge the city. So that should be forthcoming. I'll get that to you from they're going to look at what they think they can quote unquote do it for. One of the reasons that I think that's a smart move as far as the engineering firm is that they've got a lot of survey work. They're real familiar with what's going to be needed to be done for the extension of the sanitary sewer. So I think they'll, and you know, they're if you will, they're invested in the project. So I expect to get from Dylan is the name of the new owner of McKeever and Associates. I expect to get a pretty good quote from them, but it will be, it's gonna, the constructing this stuff will cause the city to have to bid it. I guess that's the only last point I had.
And we wouldn't, we need to borrow for that, or is that something that we would have in our budget to just do?
I don't know for sure. I don't know. I mean, it's not in the budget now.
Right.
I think we have to look at that, Tammy, to answer your question honestly.
If I may, was this part of the towards the end of our meeting last night when this came up in discussion and Gary kind of piped in and said, "Hey, we might have something in the works, kind of on the back burner." Am I on topic here? Or
yeah, that is, but it's I'll let him speak for that. But I was sitting in a group today. Actually, it was a group that was favorable to the project, which is kind of cool. They argued with me about some of my concerns about risk. But the counting on grants is something that I don't think we want to peg the entire, if you will, future on. So yeah, the notion of some state grants to come in and help provide some assistance on the funding. Yeah, that is something that Gary brought up at the end.
I correct me if I'm wrong, but I thought he was referring to the grants that have already been received and or approved, not any future.
No, Doc, he was talking about something that Jobs Ohio is just in the process of rolling out that this roadway and this project may qualify for Jobs Ohio funding. But okay. I think what Aaron was referencing.
Okay.
Yeah. Tammy, if I may, sorry, Mayor.
No,
I just had a quick question, and I may be overthinking this, but as far as coming up with the money to spend on the engineer, would it make more sense to have an up or down vote whether we're going to even do this project before we talk about investing $50,000 in something we may never use? Am I overthinking this?
No, you're not overthinking it. It's a good thought to ponder. I think sooner than later, to answer the question, sooner than later, council's going to have to either among themselves or with some sort of formal vote, declare whether we want to move ahead or not. So a straw vote in executive session is, not allowed, but talking among council members to see if there is what I really want to see is a strong consensus. 5 votes or 6 votes, optimally 7 votes to proceed with the project. I think we're asking for, we may not be ready to do it if the council is split, more fractured than that. So I'm not sure if that's what you were asking for, but yeah, I think getting an idea of whether we want to move ahead with the project before we spend $70,000 on engineering that's good common sense.
Thank you. I have nothing else, Doc.
Okay.
Hey, could I just say something?
Certainly.
Aaron, on your question, that's kind of typical what we spend on engineering. So, you know, we're constantly, I don't know, I shouldn't say constantly, but we're spending $10,000, $15,000 a lot of times on, you know, on every quarter, every couple months, you know,
right.
On engineering.
But just for clarification, is that on projects that we plan on doing? Because there's a big difference between 10 or 15 and $70,000 on something that we may never proceed with.
Right, I agree with you. I'm just talking out loud, so. Okay.
Well, it's good to hear your voice, Sparky.
There you go.
So anyway, I think, Doc, I hope that there's, as Aaron pointed out, there's two pieces of this. One piece is the commitment to the overall project, involves the freeze funds, and that not complicated. I think it's a pretty neat formula to accomplish this. And then the other part is the willingness of the city to invest a pretty significant amount in what I would describe as off-site infrastructure for the freeze center, but it's critical infrastructure. You can't build the project without it. So,
right. Well, yes, it's all part of the same entity. Neither can survive separately; they're intertwined. So, I think that again, last night, the 90% of the discussion, if not more, was centered on the financing of the building itself, and the elephant in the room Chad brought up as far as the infrastructure didn't get much time. So I'm glad that today we had addressed the complications and possibilities moving forward. So I'm not sure what else, and I'm not going to pretend to speak about anybody. I don't know what else we can discuss tonight, but I do think we need to, as committee members, to sort of have conversations with other council members and get solicit an opinion, and then have a discussion in an open meeting about some financing possibilities. Tammy, I think you brought up a great point about financing it all, as opposed to paying cash for it. I think we've had that discussion in other major projects. So I think we've got a path ahead of us, and that's all I got.
If I could add to that, I agree with everything that you're saying. It's all really good points, but I think we also need to, as much as possible, try to reach out to the community too, and get as much impact from them as well. Hard to do with COVID right now. I've been, trying to figure out how we can do that, how you can reach out. Brainstorm.
Well, I'm not as hopeful. Well, never mind. I'll just shut up.
I know.
It is hard to communicate. I would agree with that. I do think in an odd way, I don't know how many people are on here, but more people will see this Zoom meeting than if we had a finance committee meeting at council chambers.
No question. That is the biggest advantage of the Zoom meetings, is the participation via Facebook. I think it's just been fabulous to help the community stay informed, as opposed to, rumors or interpretations of what was heard. So yes, the Zoom meetings have been really a benefit in that regard.
All right, well, we have 21 people on here right now. 22, it just went up. 22.
Well, at the last full council meeting, I think there was over 380 people that at least viewed it. I saw.
Right.
And if I could, just piggybacking off Tammy, because I thought you brought up a great point last night, Tammy, regarding on how to reach out to our constituents. I would love for anybody to give me some constructive suggestions with IT and technology. I mean, I don't know. I know this project has been talked about for almost 6 years. I'm just not sure how else, just like Tammy just alluded to, other than going door to door, what is the best media venue to get our message out? I posted something on Facebook last night. It's just Freeze Recreation Center, 2nd Ward, give me thoughts. I had 2 people reply.
Wow.
1,000 people that go. There's got to come a point in a time, though, where you just kind of got to, I don't know, I feel like give up the ghost. I mean, you can only reach out so often, but constituents also have the responsibility to initiate conversation with us if they're intrigued or they want to know stuff. But my goodness, it's tough. It's really tough to get the message out when it doesn't seem like there's very many that are engaged either way at this point in time. So,
agreed. Tammy, do you have something else to say?
Well, social media seems to be, always a great way. So, I don't know if Facebook or Instagram or Twitter, or, I don't know. But one of the things, and again, this has hampered a little bit with COVID, but when I first started on council, I held a meeting and got a lot of people's email addresses in my ward. So, I don't know if there would be a way to do that online, to get, so then you can send stuff that way. I don't know. There's just so many ways to brainstorm. Julie?
If you'd ever want to do a Zoom meeting, I could set one up for you, and I could give you the link and you can email it to everybody's that you have their email to, and you could hold a meeting. I could open it up for you and I could actually make you the host and just go out of it and let you do what you want to do. I could do that for any one of you, because we have a paid account, so it could go,
right,
up to 1,000. I think 1,000 less, not quite 1,000 people. So,
and the only drawback to that too is it's kind of a set time. Where on Facebook, Instagram or something, people can respond on their own time. That might get people, even if that got people talking, then they would talk to other people, and then they might. And I think that's what we need to do, is just get people talking like we are, just so. Okay, sorry, that's it.
Thank you.
Mayor, do you have anything else?
No, I just think it's necessary to keep the ball rolling, so to speak.
Yes.
And it's everything that was just said the last few minutes, I would agree with. This is a $10 million investment. I think the last time the community put anything together of this size, it was with the school complex. And of the things learned there, having an open communication process was one of the things that I think will make this better. There's some folks who felt like that decision wasn't open enough. But again, having said all that, I don't think it'll please everyone. But I'm encouraged that we're being realistic about the challenges, and that's really all I have tonight, Doc. Thank you.
Okay.
Doc, if I may,
certainly.
I just received a message from someone. What if we did like surveys in the utility bills?
Yep. I mean, I have no objection with doing that.
And then if people don't respond to that, it must not really be an issue for them. But the people who it means something to, I would think would respond.
Yeah, I think yes, and I think the answer, or the way to do that effectively, is have a good set of questions that we ask our utility customers. If you're in favor of the project, et cetera, et cetera. There's a lot of trade-offs. I don't want to start opening up cartons of eggs, but I would have to say this, that $185,000 left for the city over the next 20 years is not adequate. So I really like what was done last night, but if you think out 10 years and think what 185,000 will yield the city in terms of new parks projects, that's not very much at all. So that's one thing about the deal as proposed. The city goes without new money, quote unquote, for freeze projects for quite a while, and agrees to get along with less than 200 grand. So, well, like I said, it's a whole can of worms or carton egg.
To that point, we were asked to go 15 years with nothing.
Yeah.
When the freeze bailed us out
from
10 default.
Yeah, I got it. While that is true, I would this gets into that, like the 17, 18,000 people that are out at the splash park in East Park. That's pretty hard to argue with.
I hear you. I agree.
Years, and we spent 400,000. I remember getting spanked over 400,000. Now we're going to spend 8 million. So I just, so anyways, I want to make sure that there is money for non-travel sports in Galion city parks.
I agree.
Okay.
Anything else? If not, I'd like to hear a motion for adjournment.
Hey, I have a couple things.
I'm sorry. Go ahead, Rod.
Hey, and Kara has her hand up too, but I just had an epiphany. Why don't we put out like something in the electric bill that we're going to have a Zoom call on such and such a date, and that they find out what these people are want to find out about, or maybe the local schools, the local churches. Those are ways that we could get these Zoom calls out.
Yeah.
So that's one thing. And then the other thing is, I just keeping you updated on the finances. There's like $7 million in the general fund, and we're doing good. When I got that initial thing for the budget, I thought I was going to have a heart attack, but I think we're doing a little bit better than what we initially thought, a month and a half ago or a month ago. So, we have we have $21 million in the bank. So we're doing good. $8 million pretty much in our checking account. So we're doing pretty good that way. But one thing for this year, I think we probably need to focus maybe in this meeting a little bit more is where we are on budget for our revenue and expenses, and to just check that every once in a while, in these meetings, so that we aren't, kind of blindsided at the last second or anything like that. That's all I've got to say.
Well, I think that what I would say, Rod, real quick, since you brought that up, is that my biggest concern is with electric. If you looked at water and sewer revenues, they were closer to projection. But when you look at electric revenue and electric billings, they were off significantly. And that is, has an impact because our overhead didn't shrink, but we sold quite a bit less power in 2020 than we did in 19. So you're right. We got to keep a close track on our electric sales and revenue collected, because that will have an impact on that fund balance, because reducing expenses as thinly staffed as we are and with a limited amount of new investment, we don't have, I guess what I'm saying is everybody turn on all the electric in their house, spin that meter so that we can cover that. But the revenue coming in electric was a problem last year, and I worry about it this year.
Right. So we'll just keep an eye on it throughout the year and just make sure we're on track, but we're doing a lot better than what I thought. So like you said, the water, sewer, and the electric fund, the general fund, those are the main funds that we need to look at. So you know, we make sure the health department's okay too. So I'm sorry, I won't talk anymore. I'll let Kara say something. So.
I'm sorry, someone else has a comment?
I thought Kara
did, but it resolved itself. I'm sorry.
Okay.
I raised my hand too early.
All right. So now I'm going to ask for a motion for adjournment.
I make a motion to adjourn.
Thank you, Ms. Earlston. She makes the motion for adjournment.
I'll second.
Mr. Ivy seconds. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
To be continued. Good night, everyone.
Thanks, everyone.
8:12.
8:12. I kind of like this doing it on the phone, Jules.
Hey, there you go.